what I'd like to do, and it's on page 2, please, is share with you just a little bit about the TD Bank Group and how we built our foundation, starting with Lean Six Sigma, into process excellence, and how that is really leading us to our current state of driving end-to-end process thinking and management across TD Bank. I'll leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end for any questions that you may have, so I really do encourage you to type them in, and I'm sure Smart Solutions team will be very happy to go ahead and facilitate that portion of the presentation. Before I get started again, I'd just like to thank Forrest and his team for inviting me to speak at this webinar, and I hope that it's going to be a worthwhile hour for everyone who's joining us today. So about TD Bank Group. Now, TD is, the headquarters are in Toronto, and I'm speaking to you today from Toronto, Canada. And it's one of those newer companies. It's been around about 160 years. So it's been very successful. It actually made it through, we would say, the financial crisis of 2008 quite well. It was one of the best rated banks throughout all of it. And I would say that today, just to share, there are more TD branches in the U.S. than there are in Canada today, and that was as recently as 10 years ago we had no branches in the U.S. So today, TD is the 5th largest bank in North America with 22 million customers worldwide. Our adjusted earnings last year were a little bit over $8 billion, and 80% of our earnings do come from retail. Now, the interesting thing about this slide is you see a picture of something called the J.D. Power Award. And in banking, in retail Canadian banking, about 9-10 years ago was the first time they actually put up the J.D. Power's Award. And the TD Bank has won the award 9 consecutive times. So a very, very deep embedded culture and passion for customer experience. So, and again, with a long history of success. So on page 4, what I would like to share with you now is our vision. And I think it's important to start here because you can see it in orange there as the TD vision is to be the better bank. And that's important for us continuous improvement practitioners because it doesn't say best, it says better. And that means that we are always striving to be the better bank, which means it's a huge focus on continuous improvement. In fact, you can see it there as the very first pillar that while what we are really trying to accomplish is not just do continuous improvement, but to live it each and every day and always get better on behalf of our customers. In addition to that, there's inherently been a stronger and stronger focus on the importance of process. When I got here back in 2008, there were a few leaders in the company that were saying we've really got to start looking at how we are delivering our products and services to our customers and really focus on how we're going to improve that process. And this has continued to grow in the last 6 or 7 years. In addition to that, the words transparent value mean that we measure everything. We want to make sure that we really understand what's important to our bank and to our customers, measure how we're doing, so that we can truly deliver transparent value. And again, for those of us that are Lean Six Sigma practitioners, that's very important because metrics and how we measure things and how we feed the data are work that we traditionally are a very big part of helping to give organizations that picture. And finally, at the end there it says enable end-to-end service excellence. This was something that was recently added. This was not one of the strategic pillars as recently as 3 years ago. We added this actually 2 years ago because now what we're realizing is that it's not just enough to improve by yourself or go to historic means for your customers in order to improve their experience, but that we actually have to start looking across the value chain in order to improve things for our customers, hence end-to-end service excellence. So this is one of the things that now we're adding to really focus in to be the better bank. Okay, so a little bit about my team. My team is called the Service Quality Team. And who we are is we are a center of excellence in process for the bank. We are a group of full-time continuous improvement professionals. We are all either master black belts, or green belts, or we are training to become one of those belts, who spent 100% of their time embedded into those various lines of business across the bank, driving process improvement. So what we do with those organizations is that we work with them on their team to help them to identify and to prioritize and to execute on their Lean Six Sigma continuous improvement plans and projects. My team also is very involved in trying to drive and change the culture so that we have an end-to-end thinking mindset. And so as such, there's been a lot of work done in the training aspect of not just the service quality team, but of all TD employees. And so we have owned and customized and created all of the Six Sigma training that is going out in the company today. My team also is responsible for mentoring the belts, and in addition to that, we have set up an internal black belt, green belt, and master black belt certification boards that does internal certifications. One thing I might add here is I said all training has been customized internally and delivered for TD, but we've also partnered very closely with Smarter Solutions. From the beginning, I recognized that in order to have a good team of process experts, we needed to have some of the best training and expertise that was available. So I had worked with Forrest in my previous company and really felt that his approach to incorporating Lean and Six Sigma along with the alignment to the strategy of the company was just critical components of what I was trying to accomplish. And also I wanted a very good, highly regarded technical program as well. So I've been working with Forrest and the Smarter Solutions company to provide all of my black belt and master black belt and green belt training for us, and also really helps as well to guide our master black belts with some extraordinary master black belt mentoring as well. So big shout out to Forrest and his team. In addition to the training, really what we're trying to get at is to drive the culture of continuous improvement, as I mentioned, and then ultimately to advance our thinking so that it's not just a one-off project base, but actually to start thinking end-to-end across all of our lines of business. So from a development of our process leaders, and let me start first with my Service Quality Center of Excellence folks. We actually spend a lot of time on developing them. But first, acquiring our black belt or process expertise talent. So about 80% of my team are acquired internally. We look across the company to the bankers that we work with, and many of them have been very involved in the projects, the Six Sigma projects that we have been delivering. And they have a natural affinity to understanding process. They like dealing with complex issues. They like dealing with problems that don't quite have solutions yet. And they're very good at being able to communicate and facilitate. Those are kind of the criteria that we look for. And so 80% of my staff has been built from folks who have literally no exposure rather than being on these projects as business owners. And we bring them in and we do something that we call an associate program. We spend almost a year putting these folks that we acquire from within into a very rigorous black belt or green belt training program. And through that, we provide not only the technical skill set, but we also develop them from a soft skills perspective as well. And we feel that's important because they bring with themselves the business acumen. They know TD, but they need to be able to apply the Lean Six Sigma principles and communicate it in such a way that is effective and meets the needs of the businesses that they're supporting. So in addition to our technical curriculum, we also spend a lot of time on what we would call the soft skills, which are things such as impact and influence skills, practicing on executive communications, because what we find with our green belts and our black belts is many times they are assisting the business or leading in what we call the project report outs to all levels of the organization. This is one of the few times where you might have a junior manager actually reporting up their findings up to the most senior vice president in the bank, And so we want to ensure that they are very effective in their communication skills, along with being able to communicate the benefits of the project, so the financial benefits, the risk avoidance. So we spend a lot of time training in that. Thought leadership, I already mentioned facilitation. So these are the areas that we have separate curriculum and ongoing mentoring, as well as the technical aspect. And the little honeycomb slide that or box that you see up there, these are activities that we do on a regular basis to provide ongoing support to our team in addition to the in-classroom training. We feel it's important to do things like share best practices, for example. So about once a month we'll have one of our belts get up and talk about a project that they have just recently delivered that has done something quite extraordinary to share with the rest of the team. We do tech talks, which are maybe we'll take a particular tool that we want to emphasize that month. And again, one of our staff members will give a tech talk to our team, and we actually open some of this out to the larger TD environment as well. Several times a year we have personal development days where we go off-site all together as a team and actually work on maybe some interesting external speakers, some particular skill sets that together as teams that we want to do. And then in addition to that, once a year there's something in there, you can see it, called Ignite. We hold a big company-wide forum, and it's really a best practices sharing forum where the 10 top process improvement teams from across the bank come together, and they actually compete. And we have our senior executives, including our president, our senior vice presidents, come in and, quote, score and judge those teams, and we recognize the best of the best. And we have a lot of fun, and it's a big celebration. And it is one of the most effective ways that we have found to actually share information and do it in such a way that if you don't know anything at all about Six Sigma, about the service quality team, about process improvement, once you come and you see these projects being shared with the team members and the incredible results that they're getting, it's the best way I've found to date to, quote, sell the overall program. So what's some of the impact that we've been having? So since we've started now, we're in the thousands of discrete, what we call BAU, or business as usual, Lean Six Sigma projects. When we started our very first year, after the first year, and this is an annualized, we had about, I would say, a little bit less than $15 million worth of results, which was pretty significant. But when you're as large as we are, our bank, you know, it's like you've got to start accumulating the benefits. So what I would share with you is that since our beginning, we've more than doubled our financial impact year over year, and we're actually closing in on over $1 billion by the end of this year is what we're hoping to do. So once you get to levels like that, it does have an impact, and then you are able to make decisions about where am I going to reinvest this money, and what am I going to be doing to actually advance whatever the strategic pillars are of the bank. So it's become quite a large part of our company, and it's really helping us to continue to get those J.D. Powers Awards year over year. So the size of my team is 100. So we now have we started with 6, and we have 100 dedicated service quality team members. But what I would share with you is that in addition to these dedicated process experts, we probably have thousands of people across the bank who have also been trained up to the yellow belt level. They're participating on the projects. We have a lot of online training that we've made available. I think we've been keeping track. We've got about 7,500 people who to date have taken the online training. So we are the leaders in leading the most complex projects, but we've also have a philosophy of pushing out as much as we can this type of methodology so that we can do at the business level more the grassroots as well. So quite a large success to date, and in addition to that, we're actively focusing in on building design principles, design for Six Sigma, into our process expertise, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more in the presentation about what we're doing now to move from the discrete projects into end-to-end process management. So how did we evolve? So we started with a very distinct focus. I think a lot of companies do, and specifically when you're in transactional type services, non-manufacturing, you focus initially on lean. It's easy to take a look at something, what's value add, non-value added, what can we remove, and that's the initial focus for process improvement. But then, you know, when you're looking at the problems that the company is trying to solve for, you start saying, you know, there are a lot of things that having a process focus can really help you to improve. So very quickly, in addition to the lean, we started incorporating a lot of our expertise into things like moving processes. So you could move processes because maybe you're reorganizing and you're bringing two discrete businesses together. Maybe what you're doing is you're acquiring a business and you have to move processes from one business to another. Maybe there's an opportunity to do some labor arbitrage, and maybe, you know, we want to move some of our processes from Canada to the U.S. or U.S. back to Canada. All of those kinds of things are moving of processes. And you know, we do a big focus as well, harder to do, takes more time, but also to embed the designing of processes as well into this. So we started DFSS again back in, I would say, 2009, 2010, and we've been keeping that up and slowly growing that and increasingly trying to embed that into our end-to-end process management. But anyway, so we're not just doing lean, we're doing anything that touches a process that requires improvement, and a focus on process is what my team is responsible for. And so you don't just jump from doing nothing with process to end-to-end process management. I think if I look, I've attended quite a number of conferences and spoken at some of them. It is unrealistic to expect, you know, just to go from 0 to 90 in 2 seconds. You actually have to build a foundation of even understanding why is process important, get some traction with actually getting some results so that you have your proof points, and then start really expanding the culture for continuous improvement through the training and getting more and more of those discrete projects, and then beginning to look for opportunities to start linking those discrete projects together, and then to maybe rename what you are to process excellence, because that is what you're doing for the company, and then ultimately really start focusing on end-to-end process management, which is linking it together. So that's really the steps that we have gone through to get to where we are today with our focus on end-to-end process management. And that little picture, and I'll talk more about that under end-to-end process management, is that we actually now have created a playbook or a methodology, and that was created by our team here. We started in 2013. We've evolved it last year, and so there is now an end-to-end process management methodology that is, the foundation of it is Lean Six Sigma. So that is what the bank is following today. But we have developed all of that in-house, and really what we're trying to do is focus in on getting everyone to think about where they are in the value chain and what the inputs are that are coming into them and the outputs of what they're giving, and really start optimizing across the value chain. So that's really what our focus is right now. I'm not saying we're all done with that, good to go, but that's where we are at this point. I think I introduced that last year, so I'll share with you a little bit more about how far we've come and what we're doing. So the reason behind, it's not just a nice to do, this is a very, very challenging, as any of you who are practitioners know, this is not an easy task. It's dealing with the strategies of the company. But in our case in particular, I think it helps that we have such a focus on our customers, on the customer experience, and really doing everything we can to make it a better customer experience. Now, what we were finding, and our leader in particular, our president, would say that a lot of, and he recognized this customer experience was based on the heroics of our individual employees. And the reason that it's based on that is because if something went wrong, there was not a good repeatable process by which they could solve the problem, but they had to do extraordinary efforts sometimes to solve the problems. So he looked at it and said, you know, what can we do? This is now what we have to tackle. We really have to start looking at things from across the entire process with the customer lens in mind and start fixing those what we would call, you know, fix things in the white spaces, the handoffs between lines of business. From a business perspective, what's the business case to doing this? Yes, you know, you could say TD is a very successful company, it is. And I would just say for myself personally, you know, I happened to, with the last two companies I was with, both times when they launched continuous improvement and Lean Six Sigma, it was because they were actually in a bit of a crisis. So they had to fix things, there was a business imperative. I would submit that it is probably more challenging when you are very successful to actually go through this kind of rigor to say, all right, you know, it is an imperative for us, we've got to get better. So I would just share with you, it's a bit more challenging. However, having said that, no one in today's economy, especially in the financial sector, is immune from the myriad of increasingly complex regulatory environment of what's being imposed upon financial institutions. And so that is the antithesis to leaning something out and things that make sense in a process. These are, you could view it as non-value added but necessary, but truly you have to get better at what you're doing in order to respond to the crushing weight of that, and it's not going away, so you have to do something dramatically different there. What we have seen is that our customer demands are coming in faster. They want things new, quicker. If there is a problem, they want it resolved quicker. And then we have the increased focus on looking external. It's something that we call anti-money laundering, which is the whole, you know, threat to financial institutions of terrorism. All that is not going to be getting any less. So we have to have very robust systems in place to be able to respond to that. And, you know, our competition, as always, is looking at these things too. So it's not like we feel, gee, we can just be complacent. These are very, very compelling reasons for us to do things dramatically different. And in our case, one of the key answers is to really focus in on more robust processes so that we can respond to these demands through end to end. So again, I mentioned a lot of these already, but what we are experiencing, or what we had been, and this should look probably pretty familiar to those of you who are process practitioners, but in our bank, again, we would say, gosh, maybe initially a lot of the problems were caused because whatever we have up front maybe wasn't designed that well, and it was thrown into our branches and into our operating offices to just start, you know, working it. And we had to do a lot of rework. It's not past tense. We are doing a lot of rework, a lot of unnecessary handoffs, slowing down the entire process, errors that our customers are feeling. And as a result of trying to correct all those problems, losing a lot of you know, lost potential revenue for the bank. So again, these are all very, very compelling reasons. And part of my initial work here that I had to do was actually to isolate and to show what was causing all of these things, and then through the process improvement work to fix it. And that's historically what we've done with those thousands and thousands of projects. So they could actually then start to see, gee, this stuff works, and now we want to expand it to actually now start focusing in on those things, those white spaces in between the lines of business that nobody owns today. And oh, on top of it, the technology that all these processes run on is very kludgy, it's old, it's been customized over the years, and it's not a plug and play. And so there's a tremendous amount of effort underway as well to actually improve the technology as well. That was an easy problem. There's no problem at all there. So what our stated goal is here for adopting an end-to-end approach is, again, step one for us is to really identify from the customer perspective what are some of those key end-to-end processes that our customers, the journeys, if you will, that they go through. And in banking, it might be a customer will go through a process of buying a home. So that's one of the first ones, by the way, that we did look at when we were doing end-to-end process work. And then the next thing that we did is we said, okay, up until now we don't really have a clear owner for a process. And so our president again said the individuals that own the P&L for the process, even though it goes across multiple lines of business, will be the de facto owner. We didn't know what exactly that meant at the time, and there's still a lot of work around that, but we did at least come up with a owner. And then what we also did is we said we're going to have the output of this work help us to inform the technology roadmap that is going to be linking to a simplified and scalable architecture and technology solution. So our goal in end-to-end thinking was really to, across the company now, have a common understanding, a common methodology to understanding, no matter what line of business you're in, is where do you fit in the value chain. That's a common understanding. Develop a partnership, because although we have a designated owner, who owns what? And how do you actually get people to work together and not at odds across the value chain? So our methodology that we've developed actually goes to starting to solve for that partnership, and that's through definition of what's happening, agreed upon metrics, and protocols of what's going to be happening all the way along the value chain. So that's really the beginning of that partnership, and having regular governance meetings as well that really didn't exist before. Again, setting times, faster times to react. A lot of our customer SLAs were 10, 15 years old, so we're really trying to reset that clock to better serve our customers. And then again, when we're looking at optimization or improvement opportunities, very different when you start looking end-to-end versus within a line of business. So our entire portfolio of our process improvement projects now are tending to not be just within a line of business, but these projects that are coming out of this to optimize are actually now little mini end-to-end projects, if you will. So it's been very interesting, and that then helps common understanding and developing partnership as well. And then one of the things that we're just starting to do this last year, again, our president said, I want this to happen, and we're doing this now, is to take the outputs from our end-to-end process reviews and actually now those gaps, if you will, and then when they're requesting something new to happen in technology, is to now start creating, and we've actually just created this process, is how it's linking into the technology roadmap, and also the request for what we call the major funding for the technology enhancement. So it's a pretty massive undertaking, but that's what the work that's underway this year. And then again, we're really re-sculpting our design for Six Sigma to get it embedded into the end-to-end thinking and process management, so that we're really, again, we're thinking about renaming it to process design versus design for Six Sigma. And there's a whole change management process that we've put in place as well, because a lot of the changes that come out of this are cross or pan organizations. So we've had to work with our change management organizations. On the next page, this is a little snapshot of some of the things that we do for our methodology, working with the business, is to, again, upfront do the initiation and planning around what we're going to do from an end-to-end perspective, get the team together to actually create the as-is picture, if you will, and then deep dive into the get agreement on what are those key opportunities, and then across the value chain, what are we collectively going to work on, and then how are we going to govern this process, looking at the key metrics going forward. So that, again, that's what that description is. There is quite a lot of, this is literally like a book. When I say a playbook, there is a book behind it. That's the high-level summary. But this is what we're now training the lines of business on, our value stream partners on, because they are all part of these end-to-end projects now. So it's a pretty massive undertaking. And then what comes out of this, we actually bucket the outputs of the end-to-end process reviews into several different categories. Again, just like with any project, improvement project that you may do, there are some things quickly that you can do with very limited technology. They're just inherently obvious, and you can get agreement to do them. We call those our quick wins. takes less than 3 months to implement. Sometimes you find that you actually have to go away and get one of those, DMAIC projects set up, and as I mentioned earlier, increasingly these are now, we've got members of value chain involved in these DMAIC projects versus a singular line of business. The interesting thing that we have found now increasingly that the end-to-end process reviews that we're doing is driving the portfolio of all of our Six Sigma projects now going forward. So I'm sure we're going to see more and more and more of that as well. And then, as I mentioned, we are also taking what does involve a technology enhancement, and we are now linked up to our technology organizations and really helping to put what's going to happen this year, next year, and the year after, and starting to build out their technology roadmap. So, what's next for us? Again, we're going to continue to prioritize and look at the high impact end-to-end processes that we're going to be doing our reviews on, and again, working with all the folks in the value chain. We look at that always, continue with what's the highest priority from an improvement perspective from our customer, and sometimes those end-to-end processes are from the risk lens as well. And what we have, again, because we can't help ourselves, we have to get better at even doing these end-to-end reviews, and our president as well has asked us, can you go faster? Can you do more? Because it's so important to us. It's strategically critical to what we need to accomplish in the company. So we've made quite a lot of improvements to our overall approach, and we've been able to go a lot faster. From our very first year to second year, we've actually improved our cycle time by over 50% and gotten a lot better with the outputs as well. And I think we'll continue to get better at it because, again, as more and more people are involved in doing this work, you don't have to stop and explain why and how. They already have been through it, so you can go faster, and that's what we're starting to see as well. A big area for us that really does require focus is the governance and interaction models. That continues to be for us something that I think we'll mature into and get better at what we're doing. We're actually, again, we've got some that are pretty good that we're starting, so we want to get more and more of that, and eventually even look at it up a level. How do we govern some of this stuff, not just at the end-to-end process level, but maybe at a higher organizational level as well. So we've already started to see some pretty large transformational changes from this work, as I mentioned, as we found that, gee, maybe it makes sense to move, certain pockets or certain work into other organizations, combine them together. That's happened already on numerous occasions. But I think what's been most interesting to me is how we're now really being asked to help to feed into investment decisions, and that's from a technology perspective, but it's also technology as it's linked to some of our future customer needs as well for things that we're not doing today. So I think that's actually, for me, over the next couple of years, it's going to be very interesting to see the output of that. So I promised you that I would leave about 15 minutes for questions, and we are actually about at the 15-minute time mark, and so with that, I guess I will turn it over and open it up for questions.
Perfect, Leslie. Thank you so much. We do have a lot of questions coming in, and if you do have additional questions, feel free to enter them into your chat function there on your screen. Leslie, just to kind of sum up a little bit of what you said, with your service quality department, you guys are building a foundation on Lean Six Sigma. You're getting the results and generating traction on that, then working to expand the culture, looking for opportunities to link the projects, and then with those projects, focusing on an end-to-end customer-centric community in TD. Is that kind of how you would sum up what you guys are doing as a service quality department?
Yeah, see, we didn't even need the 40 minutes. See, you just did it in 2 minutes. Perfect, perfect.
No, and you gave us so much detail and so much to benefit our businesses. So one of these questions that we come to is, how do you determine the financial benefits?
So that was one of the first things that we did back in 2009. What we did is, as the team, the service quality team, sat down and we said we've really got to come up with a standard way to measure benefits that are coming out of these process improvements. So we came up with a standard methodology. We have a couple different kinds of benefits. We have what we call hard benefits, which would be where you're taking direct cost out of the organization as a result of your process improvement work. And again, we worked with finance to say these are those categories that directly impact the P&L, because they already have those, right? So if this project helps to do that, those are hard benefits. The second category would be things that you recognize that are what we would call cost avoidance. And again, we have quite a large definition of things that could be cost avoidance, but I would say things like, well, you know, we improved the process, so maybe next year we don't have, maybe we had people we had to put under contract to do some of the extra work. Well, we know we're not going to have to hire them next year, so that would be an avoidance of that cost. Could be on a risk program, gee, you know, could have been fined for something, we improved the process, so, you know, that could be an avoidance there as well. And some of the other benefits would be just, these aren't financial as much, but these, again, would be more in the risk category or compliance category, where, you know, you have to do something to, because in our case, the financial auditors or whatever saying, you know, you really need to do X, Y, and Z to comply. And so we have to change the process in order to meet the regulators. So those are our three buckets that our projects tend to fall into. And then what we do is we got agreement with finance. We take a 12-month snapshot of those benefits, a run rate, and then we book the benefits in the year that the project actually is completed. And then what we've been doing as well is we've also just been tracking on a cumulative basis what is the cumulative benefits that we've accomplished over the past 5 years.
Excellent. Leslie, we've got a lot of questions about support and how you mentioned that you have monthly meetings and these reviews. What support do you guys have, and how do you start off with leadership buy-in to the Lean Six Sigma Foundation?
Okay, so if you have another 2 hours, I could answer that one question. So, you know, because support is kind of a broad category, so I think what I'll do is maybe I'll focus on leadership support. And here at TD, I think that they had quite an affinity towards wanting to do things better. I believe that the executives had done research. They were seeing what was going on from a process improvement perspective. They had, maybe they hadn't quite done it yet, but they knew that Lean was out there and was having some great benefits, and they knew they weren't Lean. So they actually dabbled with, you know, process improvement for a few years, I would say, didn't get a lot of traction. And so they were still, though, quite convinced that it could help them do better than what they were doing today. So the president of the bank, along with one of the executive vice presidents, which were the executive sponsors at the beginning, went out and basically said, let's find you know, somebody with some experience in doing this work and see if they can come in and really help us to start solving these problems. And so that's when I joined TD, and then we started very small, to be honest with you, because again, if you go back to one of my earlier slides, we had to set a foundation and we had to get some proof points. Those were our first steps. And then this has never been, by the way, really a mandated program. It's been, you know, here's the problems you guys have to solve for, and then increasingly what a number of the leaders have said is this actually is a good way for us to solve those problems that the bank lines of business is facing today. From a leadership perspective, though, as we've turned into the end-to-end process management, it requires a bit more than it's a nice to do. It does actually require a lot more commitment at the very top of the house. And what I would say is where we are in our evolution in that is to really expand the support at the, when I say senior executive, I mean the people at the executive level, the president level, who own big segments, because not all of them have been fully engaged in the end-to-end process. So we still have some work to do here, but we started with one very influential executive, and he's been a very good sponsor for us.
Excellent. So that's starting the foundation. This question says, how do you ensure that improvements are sustained, the ongoing support model for these projects?
Because you have your measurements in place, so you can go back and you can tell if if it's getting better or if it's getting worse.
Great. How did you align black belt process expertise to determine end-to-end improvement needs?
So again, because we've been doing this for years here at the company, they were already supporting the lines of business, already embedded into the business. And then once the process owners were identified, the P&L owners, then what we did is we just shifted the focus of our black belts from doing discrete process improvement to supporting the end-to-end as being led by the P&L owners. So it was actually quite easy for us to do that. I don't know if it was easy. I guess I shouldn't say easy. It was quite logical in terms of how we did it.
Great. Well, definitely good results here. So another question, how important is it to you guys to have vendors equally committed to Lean Six Sigma?
Great question. I think, again, this is another area of opportunity for us. So if I go back to my old days at Motorola, that was actually how Six Sigma started, because we recognized very quickly that our internal processes of what we were doing were only as defect-free as the incoming parts. So we therefore mandated that we had Six Sigma partners, hence suppliers. That's really how Six Sigma started really sort of spreading around the world. I do feel here that that's an area for us of future growth, and so I think we still have some work to do, and that probably was going to be in maybe one of our next phases.
Okay, great. Can you comment on how you handle legal and compliance when it comes to process decisions?
I cannot comment on that.
Okay. Yeah, this attendee mentioned that it seems like it can delay process improvement, so that may or may not be true for you guys. We'll go on to the next question. We have a lot of questions about biggest challenges. What challenges have you guys faced along the way, or what challenges have you had before starting the process effort, which you've touched on a little bit there?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's, you know, again, it's just getting the buy-in, and I'm sure most of you on the phone, you probably, you know, are in the same boat in a sense. The biggest challenge is, you know, you're very committed to this methodology. You've seen the results. You know, you're working with businesses who've seen the results. You've got maybe a person in the value chain who's upstream, who really needs to be doing this work, but they're not doing it. They're not connecting. They're not doing process improvement, and so it becomes, I think, the biggest challenge when you're doing end-to-end value chain management is to get everybody along the value chain to truly understand with one methodology how we need to work together. For us, it's taken us 6 years, and I wouldn't say we're where we need to be yet. So I'd say for me, I really view that as one of the biggest challenges.
Right. Well, making great progress. This question is about culture changes, and you mentioned you have a change management organization. Can you talk a little bit about how that's structured?
Yeah, so again, what we do is we have a change management organization for very large changes that come out of some of the work that we're leading. And so they just become part of the process, if you will, for the changes that are going to be made. So it is something that's been in place for a number of years, so I didn't actually have to go and do anything net new. We just call our change management folks and get them engaged, or they're actually working with the line of business already. And so when it comes to communication and all that stuff that goes along with change management, they're embedded into it. The other thing that we do, though, around change management is that as we're going out and doing the training on end-to-end thinking or some of the Six Sigma principles or lean principles later, is that we actually embed change management and thinking about right from the beginning the most simple change that you're going to make in process is a change, and what impact does that have on the employee and on the customer. And so it's just sort of embedded into how we teach and talk about what we're doing. For our end-to-end process management curriculum that we just came out with, we really, our first 2 modules on that were all about why do you want to engage in this? You know, what are the changes going to look like? And we did a lot of the focus not on the technical, what's end-to-end and all, you know, how you look at it through the methodology and the playbook, but it was really more about the employee, and it was more about the why, which is a big part of the change management aspect. So I think I have time for one more question.
Sure. Let's finish off with one other question, and just to address a couple of attendees, we will have the recording available within 24 hours. And so for our last question, Leslie, from a benefit tracking perspective, for any given initiative, do you only capture in-year benefits or multiple-year benefits?
So again, I did answer that earlier, but I'll just repeat it again. We actually do it 2 ways. We within year, when the project has completed, we take a 12-month annualized run rate and we book it within the fiscal year, the year that the project is completed. And then just separately, we're also tracking the accumulated benefits year over year that we are generating through this work as well.
Great. Well, Leslie, we all commend you for these great results that you've shared with us today. We thank you for your time and effort in putting this presentation together, as well as your team. Worked with a number of your teammates there who have made this presentation possible. So we thank all of you there at TD Bank. We congratulate you for your results and good standings there. Your president's asking, can you do more? Can you do it faster? You're going to be involved in big investment decisions in the future, and so we can't wait to hear more from you and appreciate your time today. Any last questions?
I think I'd just like to say thank you again for having me for this webinar, and again, you've been very kind. We still have a lot of work to do here. We're excited about where we've gotten on the journey so far, but there's still a lot of room for us to go to do some of these pretty massive changes, organizational changes that we're trying to do. But we're quite excited, looking forward to the future. And again, I wanted to thank you and Forrest and the Smarter Solutions team as well for all of your support over the last few years. We really do appreciate it.
We love working with you guys, Leslie. Thank you so much, and thank you, attendees. We will make a recording of this available.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.